So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for making it early in the morning. Lovely to see you here, for those who made it here, or for those who follow digitally. I'm really excited to kick off Cannes with the most important, the most critical, the most existential issue that the industry and beyond is facing, which is net zero emissions. I'm Richard Davis, the CEO and co-founder of 51 to Carbon Zero, and I'm here with progressive leaders from the industries who have taken a really unique, progressive and first stance on net zero emissions in the last few years. Rather than me introducing you guys, what if you actually say who you are, what you do, and if net zero is important for you personally?
I want to start. So I'm Jean-Marc Papin. I'm the Senior Vice President at Horizon Media in media technology and sustainability. And really, for me, sustainability is a passion. So anyway, and we decided to start actually in Cannes 2 years ago. It was really the first meeting we had about this. And since then, it's been a journey to learn about it, to acknowledge there is something to do in the industry we can do, and then start working on solution. But I believe we will talk about this in that conversation later. And thank you for having us.
Julie.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Julie Selman. I am SVP EMEA at Magnite, and I also lead our sustainability efforts in the company. And how I sort of started doing that is because it was also a personal interest of mine. I did a short course at Cambridge that I think now everyone has done, but I was one of the first many years ago on the topic, and I thought, how can we apply this in our daily lives, but also in our company? So that's how it started.
Fantastic, thank you.
Great, I'm Simon Sikorsky. I'm the President of Global Operations for XR Extreme Reach. Similar to everybody else, sustainability is a passion point for me. I believe everybody has a responsibility to address the situation right now. But from a business perspective, I think it's a competitive advantage. So that's why we at Extreme Reach are getting involved with that as well.
Fantastic, and thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for being personally passionate about this important topic. A topic which in the last 2-3 years has been broadly discussed at Cannes and in the trade press and beyond. And we are now probably at an inflection point, especially with the net zero GARM announcement coming up in the next couple of days with the first framework for measuring media emissions. But as we know, in this industry, things move when actually there is demand from clients. So I wanted to ask you guys, what are you seeing coming from clients in terms of requests, asks, when it comes to net zero and carbon emissions? And whoever wants to get started, you are welcome.
I can take that one.
Yeah.
At an agency, we work directly with brands. So I think here, the brands that we are working with in that industry have been working on that sustainability issue for long time. Any consumer goods company will have trucks, factory, source product in exotic country where civil rights sometimes are not respected. So they have been on that journey forever. So for us, we basically took the train a little bit later. But now what we see is the brands are asking us also accountability. So it's relatively, I mean, say we are still at the very beginning of the journey. I think we start also as marketer, we start to understand that consumers are expecting this, right? We measured, I mean, in a study we have done in the US, that about 80 million of American consumers are expecting sustainable products. So it's clearly an under-attended demand. If you try to buy a sustainable product in the grocery store in the US or even here, I don't think you will have too much, right? You would buy a few things, but not that much. So it's really a demand. So the brands we are working with are doing a transformation. Transformation which has to be visible in their product lines. And now they are saying, okay, guys, you also have to help us. And then I come back to Simon's point. There is a business opportunity there, because it's not only that it's licensed to operate. I mean, we have those conversations with each other a lot. We call that is table stake for the business, right? But it's licensed to operate because the brands ask us to do something they are very nice for now, I would say. They say, just do something, we will talk in a year from now when you have done something to fix objectives. But for now, at least it's just to give a start and understand their consumer base to help them with a journey.
I think that's a really interesting point. They're being nice for now. We've seen a huge shift in the move from intent, what's your sustainability policy, to measurable outcomes. I saw a survey a few weeks ago from Forbes, and 65% of the C-suite have sustainability as a top 3 priority. That's important. That means that it's on their radar. So we're addressing that and really making sure that we're doing what we can to be at the forefront of it with measurable outcomes, providing dashboards, providing metrics that allow them to prove back to their stakeholders that they are actually doing what they've promised to the market, which is net zero by 2030 or 2040, whatever their respective commitments are.
Yeah, I mean, I agree agree with all of this. I think there's a lot of pressure from consumers, also employees. They want to work for a company that is doing the right thing. Legislation, investors, everyone is looking at this now. And in terms of the requests we get from our buyers, I guess, it's a lot of RFIs now, like you said, asking questions. What are you doing? And then I think a year ago, it was still quite friendly and maybe 5 questions. And now it's maybe 25 questions and very much, what are your numbers? What does it look like? What are your plans? And another thing I think is really important is industry engagement. So, being part of things like Ad Net Zero and joining the debate. IAB has sustainability working groups. I think there's often questions on RFIs as well. Sort of, what else are you doing? Are you working together with your peers? Because as much as it is a competitive advantage to be ahead of the game, it's also something that we can only win if we're all doing the same thing together.
Absolutely. And on that point, on RFIs, we're seeing, even in the US, where legislation is less stringent than the EU, the numbers of RFIs with sustainability at the core, or questions on sustainability, is increasing year on year, which is great.
If I could just add to that, I think it's the depth of the questions is really interesting. It's moved from 3 or 4 questions to a little bit more probing about what are your actions and how are you measuring them.
For those of you who follow a little bit of the climate conversation, the last COP, which is when all the world leaders come together for a week or so and talk about how to create frameworks for global legislation on carbon, was all focused on taking stock. So have we actually started to achieve some of the stuff that we committed to globally in 2015 at the Paris Agreements? And we did a little bit of a research on taking stock in the marketplace that we live in. Oh, if this worked. Anyways, we looked at how the holding companies and the large media agencies, so this is a question for you probably, Jean-Marc, are actually progressing on net zero. And the reality is that there is good progress on core emissions. We see almost 50% of core emissions being reduced by the big holding companies in the last 3 years, which is great, but it's a small chunk, of course, of the total emissions of the companies. Work to be done on the supply chain, the value chain, the wider ecosystem that actually contributes to that corporate footprint. So I wanted to get a view from you, Jean-Marc, on, from the agency side, what you guys are doing, what you see working, what you would say to people who are about to embark on the journey and who have not done it yet.
So what I would say, go for it. Don't wait a second, for sure. That's the first thing I would say. But more seriously, I think here, and I would like maybe to take a quick step back, if you allow, right? We, as an industry, still don't understand very well what we are talking about, as an industry, including myself in it, right? And I think this is very, very, very important that collectively we explain clients that we have to separate what I call enterprise and media supply chain, right? So now people start to understand scope 1, 2, and 3. I get it. People are very happy and understand, but we have to separate enterprise and media supply chain. Enterprise is what you need to fuel your business every day. That's what today our clients are asking. Media supply chain, which is what we buy, what the media we buy and generates carbon emission for certain reasons, because we have too much processing, we have like open exchange, which is massive, etc. That's another question. Both are complementary, but I think this is very important that we start doing something on enterprise first, because this is where we can take action. And this is how we can show example, and it is easy to do. So it's really low-hanging fruit that we have to take. If we want to be too strategic and start changing the whole ecosystem for tomorrow morning, it will not happen. So let's be more tactical at the beginning. Take action. In our case, I mean, it's simple things. I mean, we reduce like lighting in the building. We have we think about like having renewable energy in the building, like improving our waste management, travel policies, procurement policies. We have like ton of small things that are very, very, very easy to do that can be done in a few months. And then in parallel, we can start thinking about what the media supply chain can be, can bring on top of which is actually the biggest chunk of emissions.
Just on that point, if I can play devil's advocate here, I mean, policies are easy, but behavioral change is hard.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, I think we all agree with that, right? So, I mean, here, in our case at Horizon, what we do, we invest a lot in training, communication, internal communication. I mean, we have a playbook for employees. We have events. I mean, for some of us, I mean, most of you guys know that we have a sustainable summit where we talk about media sustainability. So the training and the communication is huge. And it's even more challenging when we work with, in our case, business teams who are managing client relationship, who are under the gun to make more revenue and be more profitable. And those people really need to have a good story to start thinking about sustainability. And you need like to spend a lot of time to explain the value. And I come back to that same point, like the business value, right, of doing this. Because if there's no business value, people will don't do nothing.
Yeah.
No, and we encourage our teams to just be better tomorrow than you were today. There's a lot that needs to be done. We're not going to try and boil the ocean. We won't solve this in a year. This is a journey that we will continue to be on. So I think that mentality of just doing some of those tactical things, that actually swells into quite a big shift in behaviors. And I think that's really important.
Just on the taking stock theme, there were some stats published by Net Zero a few months ago, but it's still relevant, looking at across the different players in the value chain, platforms, ad tech, agencies, publishers, how many of their members in those segments have taken or have committed to net zero. Ad tech came as the lowest, between 10 and 20%, depending if you look at short or long-term targets. That's not important. So why do you guys think that ad tech is struggling a little bit to move faster? What got you to move faster? And what, again, you would say to people who are there on the fence of thinking, should I do this or not? How would you nudge them in the right direction?
So I'm not sure how they've measured it, because there's SBTI, but there's other ways you can be doing lots of things. So at Magnite, for example, we've been measuring for 4 years our own emissions. Initially, we did it sort of manually, and now we've obviously working with a fantastic platform, so you can measure and things like hold people accountable to certain numbers and things like that. I think one of the important things for ad tech companies to realize as well is that, yes, the open exchange, all that, those are huge emissions, but as a company, we're quite a small company. We are not a huge brand with manufacturing, et cetera. So, and I think the realization that digital emissions are not as great as we may have thought before is quite recent as well. So I think that might be why it's a little bit slow, but I think now with Net Zero and CAN and things like that, everyone is pretty much aware, and I think pretty much everyone I know is starting to take action at least. And there's a lot of education to be done as well, but I think we're getting there now.
Yeah, I challenge that stat a little bit, because I look at what we're doing at XR Extreme Reach. We've been looking for years at how to reduce our storage, how to reduce the weight of our codes, how to reduce replication of assets that are being delivered around the world. All of those are inherently sustainable activities. I think what we haven't done well enough is measure those things. And that's where we've gone as an organization, is to really dive into how do we represent all of that activity in a measurable way. So working with 51 Carbon Zero, we're looking at our own emissions, what you defined as enterprise. We're looking at how we behave as an organization. We work with Scope 3 to take a look at how what the carbon footprint is of our delivery systems. And interestingly, we're working with them on the linear version of that. I think digital, everybody has accepted that there's a carbon number, but we're working with them on the algorithm. We worked with AdNet Zero and GARM on the algorithm for their calculations as well. So we're getting involved with that community that's really bringing all this activity, because we have been doing it. I think it's fair that maybe not enough, but we have been doing some of it, and we're looking at how we can bring that forward to a much more measurable state.
Thank you. So we talked a little bit about the client pressure, or what clients are asking you guys. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what you would expect in terms of collaboration from your own partners when it comes to net zero?
I'll jump on that one because it does. I almost hate saying this, but it does take a village. There are a lot of partnerships and a lot of people who are contributing in very different ways. What I think is interesting about an opportunity like Cannes is we get to come together and talk about it. I think that there is so much power in the work that all the sustainability partners and all of the individual contributors into those organizations can do. And I think having these types of conversations, elevating the conversation, making sure that it is a business imperative, those are the important things that need to happen right now.
Yeah, I echo that completely. And I like to refer always to a community. And I think the way we introduce this is we all started this in our respective company with passion, because we think it's something we should be doing, right? And what I learned personally since I've been starting that journey is all the people that I meet are just doing this with passion. And we are more than an ecosystem, we are a community. And we share ideas, and even like I can tell you, I don't know if my CEO would be happy with that, but I talk with my counterpart on other agencies, and we share ideas, and we are friends, right? So it's really a thing that a movement that also includes our clients who are also passionate about this, and I also want to do things together. And this is such a beautiful moment that, personally, I enjoy the ride a lot, because it's a beautiful moment where we are in a pure collaboration mode. And again, as we have soft demand for the client, we can afford that luxury. Hopefully, it lasts for long.
Yeah, I think it's also a great moment. I was saying to you the other day that we're actually working together with competitors on something truly not competitive. So we've had things like brand safety, of course, and MFA, and all these topics where you still want to say, but we're better than them. Joking. But for sustainability, it's really working together, which is really interesting and really fun, actually, because you really get to know people in a different way. And you're kind of, if we do something really well, I want to tell my competitor, like, hey guys, we did it so and so, and we work with you guys, or you should also work with, which is probably, you wouldn't do that in any other sort of subject in our industry. Yeah.
And I think that's, just to add to your point, I think we should celebrate each other's successes a bit more. Maybe we're too pulled back into our own organizations, because this is a different thing. This is not about individual wins. This is about a collective advancement. So,
totally agree.
So to conclude this beautiful moment,
there you go.
So we titled the session Net Zero being a license to operate in media. I just wanted to get your quick view, guys, on if you agree with this stance, or if this is just another fad in the industry, as we've seen many in the last.
I think it will become one. I think we have the sort of IAB gold standard for other things. I think certainly having done your own emissions and measure and setting targets will become a minimum, sort of a hygiene factor and a license to operate. And I think you were talking about what are we doing with our partners, but also vendors and procurement. It's super important. I think as Magnite, we are now, joining SBTI, and we're going to set our targets. That includes then looking at everyone we work with, what are they doing, and kind of like making sure that down the chain, they're also setting their targets. And all holdcos have set already net zero targets. So it's just a matter of time. I think we're quite late actually, but we'll just have to catch up, and then it'll be hopefully in 5 years it'll be sort of a tick box, no 25 questions, because it's implied in whatever the question is. Have you done it? And then yeah, we've done it. Okay, cool. We can work with you, and it'll be public, and you can see it and check it.
Yeah, and I mean, completely agree, of course. And now also we have, I mean, the regulatory environment, which is changing, right? In the US, the SEC has been, it took some time, but they just released the sustainability guidelines. So it means that all listed companies in the US will have to produce a sustainability report. And actually they're looking for content. And many of our clients are calling us, hey, my CEO asked me to put something here. What are we doing, right? So it's really table stakes for us to have at least a point of view. And then also for listed company, we are a private company, but for listed company, the investors are asking for it. I mean, everyone has seen that BlackRock CCO, I mean, communicated like already 2 years ago that they will look at sustainability as a factor for investment. So it comes from so many different areas. And back to your point earlier, like also employees, right? I mean, when we have young employees, like the college graduate, an interview, first question, you expect like the job perspective, the salary. No, what are you doing for sustainability? Not only climate change, right? It can be DI, it can be other aspects, but that's
all of them have done courses on sustainability in university, regardless of what they study, which is really interesting because we would have never, I studied media, it never came up. Whereas now it's part of whatever you study because it's part of life now.
And I think there's a huge, opportunity to bring those perspectives in. Not only satisfying their itch for that, but help them elevate and accelerate the journey that we're on, because it is a journey. This isn't just about, hey, I need to get a better EcoVadis score. That's great, but there's a lot to do, and we have a long way to go. I think one of the things that is a challenge for us, actually, is this requires us to do something that's counterintuitive for most of us in this industry, which is invest ahead of the curve. We're all conditioned to invest at that moment of revenue. And that's not a reality in this situation. 2020, 30, 2024, those will be a reality. But I think that that's something that we need to think about. Maybe it might introduce some new models where we're incentivized to think about it now. That's probably a different discussion panel, but I think that that's counterintuitive for a lot of us, but we have to embrace it.
Yeah, you got me thinking. But no, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
You.
Grazie mille for joining.
Grazie.
And
Merci.
you all as well.
Thank you for having us.
And to the RTL guys for hosting us. And have a great Cannes.
Thank you, Richard.